Hello and welcome back to the Mind Solution podcast. It's your host, Sarah Maud, and I'm here today to talk about why self awareness is the new superpower. So, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's reasonable to say that we'd all like to think that we are pretty self aware. But the truth is that we are running our life more than 95% of the time based on the unconscious mind. And so, if we don't have the self awareness to recognize the thought patterns, the stories that we're telling ourselves, the beliefs that we're living our life by, the emotional responses that we keep repeating again and again, if we don't have that level of self awareness about why we are showing up and reacting moment by moment by moment every day. Welcome back to the Mind Solution podcast. I am your host, Sarah Maud. And today I'm talking about why self awareness is the new superpower. So, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's reasonable to say that we'd all like to consider ourselves as self aware. But the truth is, we are running our life based on the unconscious mind, based on unconscious conditioned responses more than 95% of the time. So if we don't have the level of self awareness of why we are thinking the thoughts that we're thinking, if we don't have the awareness of even being aware of the thoughts that are going through our mind, if we don't have that self awareness of the stories that we're living our life by, that we're telling ourselves, the limiting beliefs that we're feeding, that again are governing how we're showing up day after day, the emotional responses, the behaviors, everything that is impacting how you show up in the world, in your job, moment by moment by moment, well, then we can't change what we're not conscious of. And I remember many years ago being at a Dr. Joe Dispenza conference and hearing him say, if you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. And I love that quote because it's so true and it so speaks to self awareness that you can't see the label if you're inside the jar. So if we're not aware of our thought patterns, if we're just allowing ourselves to operate from the level of the unconscious mind more than 95% of the time, then that is the place that we're operating from. Now, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Solution podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Maud, and I am talking today about why self awareness is the new superpower. And what do I mean by that? Well, the truth is, we are all running our life based on the unconscious mind, based on our unconscious conditioned responses more than 95% of the time. So if we don't have the self awareness to recognize habitual thought patterns, to recognize the stories that we're telling ourselves, the beliefs that we're living our life by, the responses, the feelings, the emotions that we keep falling back into, then you're experiencing these habitual responses, the way that you think, you feel, you behave moment to moment to moment. Well, we can't change what we're not conscious of. I once heard Dr. Joe Dispenza say at a conference that you can't see the label when you're inside the jar. Now, I love that quote because to me, that speaks about self-awareness. If we can't see what's not serving us, then how do we know what to change? And when it comes to the unconscious mind, we tend to think about the unconscious mind being about the mind. But actually, that's not true. Because whilst we do have neural circuitry in the brain, we have this neural network that is the unconscious mind in the brain. The fact is that the body is the unconscious mind. The nervous system is the unconscious mind. And the fact is that the body has been conditioned over time to live in emotional states like fear, anxiety, isolation, depression, insecurity, worry, doubt. And these emotional states of being then become our identity. And the truth is, we are always going to look for what is familiar. And the reason that we do that is because of a part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is part of the limbic brain, it's part of the emotional brain. And it's the amygdala's job to basically keep us alive by detecting threats. But here's the paradox. Because if you've spent years feeling anxious, feeling worried, feeling fearful, insecurity, lack of self-worth, always second guessing yourself, not trusting yourself, all of these emotional states, even though you know at some level that they are not serving you, that they're impacting the way that you're showing up day to day. They're getting in the way of you truly living your potential, from going for that promotion, from tackling that situation at work, from putting yourself forward for that promotion. All the ways that these conditioned responses are keeping you stuck, keeping you in this same pattern. Well, what's happened is that these emotions have become your baseline. They've become chemically wired into the body. And the body has memorized these emotions. And your amygdala is not just scanning for external threats. Like if somebody was coming towards you with a knife, then your amygdala is absolutely going to respond to that. But your amygdala is also scanning the internal environment. And it makes sure that we are living from the baseline. We are living from this familiar state of being. So what happens is we produce thought loops, and thought loops that create that emotional baseline. So take something like anxiety. Now, I have worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the last 13 years that have struggled with anxiety. Many of them have been struggling with anxiety for more than 30 years. And it's not that they've not tried to create change. Maybe they've been to see the doctor. Maybe they've contacted the EAP helpline. Maybe they've had a meeting with occupational health. Maybe they've got some counselling sessions through work. And yet they keep returning back to this anxious state. And if you've ever experienced anxiety, then you will know how debilitating that is, because people can reach the conclusion that it's me, that I'm the problem, that there's something wrong with me, or this is just who I am. I'm just an anxious person. It's part of my personality. I'm a natural born worrier. I've lost count of the amount of clients over the years that have said that to me. And trust me, this is not the truth. What's happening is that the amygdala is creating that baseline for the familiar. So even though anxiety, it doesn't serve you. Anxiety, it gives you nothing, but it takes everything away from you. It's still familiar. It's become that memorized response in the body. And so the thoughts that are being generated are reaffirming the familiar. So we know that these feelings of anxiety, of depression, of feeling lonely, isolated, all of those, they're not supporting us. They're not supporting our growth. They're not supporting us to move forward in life, to experience life in the way that we're meant to experience life. It's just that they are reaffirming the familiar so that the amygdala has got this baseline. So the body signals to the brain, keep thinking those thoughts that then generate those feelings. And in simple terms, you've now got this chemical thinking feeling loop that you're in, and it just becomes a conditioned state. And there are people out there that say that it becomes hardwired. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the term hardwired because I think it can imply that, well, if it's hardwired, I can't change it. And that's not true. You absolutely can change it because the brain is made of neuroplasticity. It's just that we have created this conditional thinking, feeling loop. And for me, one of the things that I absolutely love about delivering employee well-being webinars, or whether I'm teaching mental health training for managers or my HR alchemy program, is that when employees start to understand this, when they start to understand the human psyche, when they start to understand that actually change is possible, they start to realize that these thinking, feeling loops have just been conditioned responses. They've just become habitual and that they're not personal. And they're able to see them for what they are, because thoughts themselves are not the problem. The problem is believing them. Well, then they start to see that they are not victims of circumstance. They start to get this sense of hope, of empowerment. And for me, this is about creating a whole new paradigm when it comes to employee well-being. Because the truth is that talking therapy like counseling and CBT can actually keep us stuck in this thinking, feeling loop. Because just picture or imagine you're talking about all the reasons that you feel anxious, that you feel that you can't change. You keep talking about the past, all the things that have gone wrong in your life. Well, you're just feeding that thinking, feeling loop. And I have lost count of the amount of people that have come to me over the last 13 years and they've said, I just don't know what's wrong with me. I've tried medication. I've spoken to a counsellor. I've had some CBT, but I still feel anxious. And once they start to understand thinking, feeling loop, once they start to raise their levels of self-awareness, and in doing so, they raise their level of consciousness, they start to see things from a very different perspective. They're able to start to catch these thoughts. They're able to start to see these thoughts for what they are and not give their power away to them. The more that they start to understand the human psyche, it's like watching people in these employee wellbeing webinars just light up. It's like these aha moments. these insights, these realizations. And it's just such an incredible thing to witness when people start to break free from these old conditioned responses. And they realize, I'm not an anxious person. I'm not even an insecure person. I just thought that I was. And what we also back up with this insight, this wisdom, is we give people access to the somatic tools that help them to break free from this chemical conditioned thinking feeling loop. So one of the wonderful, wonderful tools that I use from the world of energy psychology is tapping, or to give it its proper name, emotional freedom technique. And again, I've lost count of the amount of people who I've had on a webinar, and I've got everybody tapping on themselves. And literally, the whole group are experiencing a shift in the way that they feel in real time, because they're experiencing a somatic shift. They're experiencing their nervous system being regulated. And this is the other reason that self-awareness is the new superpower, because if we are not aware, we can't self-regulate. And I just love it when I get somebody on a live demonstration and I get them to share with me what's going on and start doing some EFT tapping with them. And literally, I just do maybe 3 or 4 rounds of EFT tapping, and I kid you not, but within less than 10 minutes, they are just like, oh my God, what's just happened? I feel completely different. What was a problem 5 minutes ago just isn't a problem anymore. That they might have started the session with a pain in their shoulder, and then 5 minutes later, they're like, oh my God, that pain has dissolved. And I'm like, yeah, this is the power of somatic practices, because what we're doing with them is we are changing the internal chemistry. We're changing the nervous system. We're upgrading the nervous system. We're neutralizing these thought patterns. And when we are doing that consistently, well, then we are teaching the body a new response. We are teaching the body what it feels like to feel safe, to feel calm, to feel grounded, to feel joy, to feel happiness, to feel any number of things, which paradoxically is our natural state. When we are not living our life by these conditioned responses, we are naturally living our life by this conditioned state. But the unconscious mind, the unconscious body is running the show around 95% of the time. So we can all have these experiences of living our natural state. We can experience feelings of feeling happy or joy or calm, but then we slip back into the familiar, because that amygdala is looking for its baseline. And so the consistency of teaching the body a new response is something that I am deeply passionate about. And it's the reason why in our employee wellbeing platform that we include so many somatic healing techniques like EFT tapping, like quantum flow, like havening, like any number of transformational tools and techniques that I've been working with people on for over a decade. I've held over 10,000 one-to-one sessions, and I know that these absolutely work. And that's where I see there's such a golden opportunity within workplaces to create this whole new paradigm of employee well-being, because it is consistency. You know, let's look at what Aristotle said. We are what we consistently do. And so, whilst I absolutely love, love, love employee wellbeing webinars, what I love even more is when we have the organizations invest in the employee wellbeing platform so that we can empower employees with the tools, with the techniques that are somatic, that are from the world of energy psychology, so that they're empowered to create change. And that's an incredibly liberating place to be. And the more that they're utilizing these tools and resources, the more that they're raising their levels of self awareness. And then as a result, they are raising their levels of consciousness. And the more that we are living life day to day from a heightened state of consciousness, well, that's where the magic happens, because we are no longer giving our power away to these old conditioned responses. So if you're listening to this, and maybe you're an HR leader or a wellbeing manager or a business owner, that you're just thinking, yes, yes, this is absolutely speaking to me, and I want to find out about how to bring this into your organization, then hop onto the link that's contained within the show notes, and let's have a conversation and start to create real, lasting transformation in your organization.